less is more. I encourage people to stop chasing the buck and chase the quality in your life. It's good you'll have $10 million and a heart attack. I'd rather have $1 million in my health. You follow what I'm saying?
I want to have a successful business, 100%. But at the same time, I was like, I want the big business, that is making a lot of money so I can have this grand lifestyle.
Yeah, but you see, there's a question I ask you. How much do you need? If you amass $10 million and you can't live on $10 million, there's something wrong with you.
There's a lot of conversation now that this might not be the right environment for the new generation. There's a lot of division. There's a lot of things, right?
That's a very disheartening statement, an observation just made. Truth-driven, by the way. So what are we going to do about it is the question. How about we stop doing business the way we did and start reinstilling some credibility in institutions and a way of life that we once embraced? People in this country need to learn how to relax. You hear me? Stop being triggered. Take a deep breath. And that's one of the discussions with AI. Like if you look at the entertainment industry recently, the Writers Guild strike and then the SAG strike deals a lot with the implementation of AI, right? Artificial intelligence to create image and likeness, voice, and therefore eliminate the talent.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of concern about AI and how it's going to intersect with our lives. But you're right, there are a lot of things, to be very candid with you, could be done more efficiently with artificial intelligence. And, if you really understand the best application of AI is in the operating room, in surgeries. The exact, precise manner in which they can carry out procedures is going to be elevated. I don't know if that'll necessarily translate to the elimination of personnel.
Yeah.
But I will tell you it's going to be a major aid in treating us. The interesting thing about the culture, and both you gentlemen are here long enough to understand it, we look at areas like technology and AI and whatever it is, social media, and we figure out how to monetize it. And then the expression is we piss caution to the wind and we go for the buck, even at the expense of the culture, which is what we've done. You're in a state right now, DeSantis, that passed the law you cannot be on social media before you're 16. That age should really be 18, to be very candid with you, but it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
I became familiar with computers in 1972. In the spring, I went to work for United Airlines in passenger service. All we were used to do is to generate information that would, help the passenger. Inbound delays, outbound delays, mechanicals, weather. If you were going, you could come to me, I could pull up through these Apollo computers and tell you the weather. Now we're talking about your personal life, who you dated, who you didn't date. We don't like the way you dress. Your teeth are crooked. We're pushing kids into suicide mode because there's also a failed parenting issue in here, which we can talk about if you want.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, you can see this thing. These discussions take legs because there's a lot of attachments, and that's all part of what we're living today in the country. And it's quite unfortunate because, as I keep reminding you, gentlemen, demographically, you're going to get this in the shorts.
Yeah.
You follow? My generation has their fingerprints all over this. The younger generation, we owe you guys. We owe you an explanation. We owe it to you to to reestablish the credibility in our institutions, government, the media, science, medicine, the CDC, your academic environments, now your judicial system. What's so interesting is that we brand your generations X and Z, and we're very, very harsh on you. They don't want to work, and well, we've destroyed the credibility of every institution you needed to believe in, starting with your birth.
Yeah.
So now you're going to buy into my narrative. Go ahead.
No, this is part. First of all, we're honored to have you here in the studio.
Don't get crazy now.
We obviously we met you through Gary, right, the previous owner here in the studio, and he's like, you guys are gonna get a kick out of Lou, and it's been truly interesting to see first your platform, right, your show that runs out of here in the studio, and how unapologetically you are with your message, right? And we just started chatting, and we just organically started recording. And this conversation can go 1,000 different ways, right? You are a business owner. You were past law enforcement in New York. Now you're here in Florida, and you're very concerned of the future of this country, right? And that we're both from Venezuela. We're immigrants in this country. Where to this day, I think we're still in the best country in the world, right?
You're also the people we want coming.
we didn't.
Just for the
We
record.
didn't go.
We're-
Legally, by the way, for the
You know,
record.
can I be honest with you? There are people coming into the country illegally that we want and we need. You know, the problem with the country is that we haven't developed a mechanism to help people assimilate. You know, we're so fear-driven that the minute we suggest something that's different, we become threatened, and all of a sudden communications start to break down. But,
Yeah.
you know, you need an immigration policy, but that problem that we're dealing with is that we are incapable of vetting people today, and I'll explain to you guys why. Numbers of people coming across the border, a lack of assets to conduct these vetting processes. By the way, there are many countries that don't have databases like we have in the United States. We just can't run your date of birth, your social security, and come up with a whole history or story about your life. In addition, they change driver's license, passports, and birth certificates like you change your underwear. Hopefully you guys are doing it once a day. You understand my point? But I joke, but it could be that frequency.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of problems there, and the unfortunate response that's necessary as a result of this administration's policy, which has actually put this country at grave risk. Don't take my word. Listen to your FBI director. Listen to people in Homeland Security. Listen to Border Patrol and Customs, Immigration Customs Enforcement. Everybody's on the same sheet of music here. We have a problem here.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate part is there are people that need legitimate access to this country. You know, I simplify this because I just have this mentality about problem solving. Everybody coming into the country, I don't care where you come from, Pluto, Mars, Mexico, or Canada. We want your DNA and we want your fingerprints, so it'd be easier for us to account if you get involved in nefarious activity, number one. Number two, when a woman shows up at our border with 2 or 3 kids in tow, if you think that's a terrorist threat, then we need to really have a sit down.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not possible, but the likelihood is diminished exponentially. You have to have a heart here also. And what people don't understand is that immigrants like ours travel thousands of miles to get to this border, right? From South American countries, for example, Central America. They leave everything they know, including their families.
Yeah.
Don't be so narrow-minded in your thinking. Try to empathize with people. The irresponsible, remissful, and dangerous way that this immigration exercise has taken place during this presidential administration has put the country in harm's way. It's also impeded our ability to help people that really need it. You know, I have bad news for everyone, and I hope there's some level of discretion and prudence. Trump is going to be the president. I don't understand how he won't be, because this poor guy, and I'm not a fan of this man for a myriad of reasons, his faculties are diminishing every day. That's Father Time. You know, you guys know how old I am. 40 years ago, I was a different animal. I'm not saying my mental acuity changed, but your lifestyle changes. You become more sedentary, and you know, there's a lot of adjustments that you make mentally and emotionally. And you know, the bottom line is he's going to be putting people out of this country in massive numbers, including people that should stay and be allowed to stay. Now, I hope they're judicious in that exercise, because as I said, you have children with their parents here, their mom in particular, you let them stay. Kids that come to the border by themselves, how do you turn these children away? Let me see, you're going to deport them to where and to who?
Yeah.
You know, so you can make this big blanket statement, but you have to be judicious in your practice. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So, Lou, obviously, you know, a lot of the listeners here are business owners, right? The people that might, you know, they might have a job right now and they're looking for a solution or extra income on side, you know, for different factors in the environment, right? And, you know, when we started our business was to find a better opportunity and grow and, you know, we have all these dreams, right? And part of why we came to this country. And for the longest time, I don't think we were conscious or aware of external factors of the environment, you know, politically or all the things, right? And we saw it in smaller environments, like we will be part of a mastermind, or we will go travel to an event, and the people that we met there, and like that environment created these conditions for us to thrive in different situations, right? Now, if you go 10,000 feet above, right, and you see the whole country environment, right, there's a lot of conversation now that this might not be the right environment for the new generation. There's a lot of division, there's a lot of things, right? And even if you're focused on your business, this was never a question for us because we come from Venezuela and like.
So now I want to stop you with this statement because you made a very interesting statement. This might not be the environment, right? For this might not be the environment for young people.
Yeah.
It's incumbent upon my generation to make it the environment for you. See, that's all part of the conversation here, guys.
Yeah.
So I know where all of the flies in the ointment are, and I hear what you're saying. The observations are correct. We need to create an environment where there's more opportunity. We need to create an environment where you have incentive. That's what the big people are about, folks. That's what parenting is about. That's what responsible management and responsible government is about. That's a very disheartening statement, an observation you just made. Truth-driven, by the way. So what are we going to do about it is the question. Mm-hmm. How about we stop doing business the way we did and start reinstilling some credibility in institutions and a way of life that we once embraced?
Yeah.
Not a complicated solution here, folks.
Yeah. So for business owners, right? And, you have the small business owners. We're just talking about like California or even here in Florida, like raising their
minimum wage.
Their minimum wage. We have a lot of friends here that are small business owners, right? Very close to a chain of coffee shops and donut shops, and they cannot keep employees today, right? Like it's really challenging for the business owner, let alone to be worrying about things like content, right? It's where the day-to-day has so much friction, right, to get it going. So for the business owner that might be out there looking for advice because they need more sales through the door, because they need more customers through the door, I personally think is a principle things where it's like it goes way deeper than that, right? To the fact that how can we have the basis covered to have that peace of mind to move our dreams and our things forward, right? Whether that's your generation or my generation. What do you see as business owners we can do today to set that stage, right, for the years to come? Because I jump on the call with my parents in Venezuela often, and sometimes I get like really I almost like want to hang up on them because they're so in the news of like the noise of what's happening here, what's happening there, like these two political parties like arguing and like have we been lied for 50 years? And I'm like, man, like I have my 2 young kids that I need to feed this week, right? Like I need to focus on today my environment, but if that environment is not set, it's really challenging, right? Like we start climbing, it feels like an uphill battle with like minimum wage raising, more maybe some friction from the government, people moving. Maybe now you're considering moving states if you're in a different state. That's a charge for the family. Am I going to separate my family? And we live that, right? Like we came from Caracas. So what might be some advice from you to that business owner that might have that in the background and it seems like it's growing?
So I'm going to answer that question for you. There's an expression in life that says less is more. Everybody wants to grow and grow and grow. And let me tell you a little secret. As everything grows, everything becomes exponentially more difficult to manage. You have one studio, right? Mm-hmm. You guys are running the show. It's mechanically easy. Get a second, third, and fourth and start to understand what's involved in running those shows, including personnel, supervision, oversight, pick the word. I personally like less is more. I own a private security group. We're very boutique. I don't solicit business. People come to me. That allows me to manage it on my terms. It also allows me to be active. You follow? I use an interesting analogy about a mom and pop shop in the United States where they make shoes, right? They make great shoes, a little store. All of a sudden, a guy like me walks in and I said, you know what, listen, you're doing great here. Why don't you let me help you branch out and develop? We're going to capitalize you. We're going to put a store in Chicago. That kicks off. Not too bad. You can manage 2 stores. Next thing, you got 3 stores, 4 stores. And you start hiring people. You start depending on people to maintain the standard you established. That's where you go down the toilet. Less is more. I encourage people to stop chasing the buck, right, and chase the quality in your life. It's good you'll have $10 million and a heart attack. I'd rather have $1 million in my health. You follow what I'm saying? Yeah. And everybody out there in this country is preoccupied with chasing the almighty dollar. I said to you gentlemen earlier, the minute we look at something that we can monetize, we piss caution to the wind and we go for the green. And that's really the root of the problem in the country. This country has a price tag, everything. So my recommendation, one thing is, always be involved in a business where you can manage it. Number one, that lends itself to being less. And if you're going to grow before you start to embark upon that growth, you better get that support mechanism in place, because don't open a store and then start looking for people.
Yeah. That reminds me of two things. One is a fable. I think it's a fable or some sort of story, which is somebody here from America goes into small town for a vacation, right? And he sees the way of life of those people in there. Slow pace. They wake up early in the morning. They go out on their boat. They fish. And the guy's like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. I love it. I can make a business out of this. I can, buy a bigger boat, get more fish, export the fish, build a conglomerate, 20, 30 years, have a massive business, and then retire and come back to one of these small towns and have that slow way of living, right? And I always thought it was pretty interesting because, like you said right now, it's like, less is more. But then he already had it right in front of him, which I feel a lot of people here have it, right? They have that less is more, but it also, there's this culture right now, social media, one of the first, indicatives right there of pushing people to want more, right? Like a bigger way of living, a more hectic way of living, the ultra $1 million businesses. And, a few years ago, I want to have a successful business, 100%. But at the same time, I was like, I want the big business, that is making a lot of money so I can have this grand lifestyle.
Yeah, but you see, there's a question I ask you. How much do you need?
That is the thing. I think a lot of people don't really ask themselves
Warren
that.
Buffett, who's quite wealthy, as you guys know, he made a point of, addressing that statement. How much do you really need? I mean, do you need $300 billion? Like, if you can't make it, I don't want to start throwing numbers around, but if you amass $10 million and you can't live on $10 million, there's something wrong with you. Mm-hmm. Chasing all these things you can't take with you. Let me tell you a little secret. I've never seen a Brinks truck follow a hearse. Mm-hmm. You hear me?
I'm like, what is that expression?
A Brinks truck carries large amounts of money.
Okay.
So when you die, all your money is in a Brinks truck following you. It's called a Brinks truck with all your money following the hearse when they're burying you. Yeah. Whatever you die with dies with you here. The question I ask you is that if I said to you, you could have 10 more years of your life if you cut your income in half, what would be your choice? 10 years with your children. Mm-hmm. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Look, the important part of talking is the beginning of a discussion where people exchange ideas, really. And, everybody has the right, this is what's so wonderful about this country, to pursue their dreams, regardless of what they translate to. My recommendation is pull your horns in a little bit here, folks, and I live it. I'll be candid with you. And I embrace less is more. I went to Europe for the first time to work around 1980, and the thing I bumped into there, Europeans had more than we did. Less is more. Mm-hmm. We are preoccupied with flat screen TVs, generations of cell phones, what car you're driving, and all this other crap that at the end of the day doesn't amount to much. You've got to have a quality of life, but you have to understand the things in life that are important, right? They always say your family, but your health, your peace of mind, to having calm in your life. You can't even put a price tag on them. I'm looking at people, they're so stress-ridden with all their money, they have no quality of life. Yeah. But these are choices which makes this country so wonderful. You get to make those choices individually. As far as business owners, I would say you better plan before you expand. We're looking at companies in California right now with the advent of this $20 an hour minimum wage. There's one fast food establishment there. I wish I had written it down. They had 17 stores. They just closed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can't afford to make the payroll. Guys, go take a look at the cost of a Big Mac today. It was just in the news. It's more than doubled.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're killing a demographic that's going to spend their money. It's like you got it coming at you both ways. I'm shelling out more money to pay the employee, and I'm going to have less customer base because they can't afford to consume the product, which ties into this economy and business. Mm-hmm. I often question who's running this place, the village idiot? These are not complicated concepts.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it.
Yeah. So on that topic, right, there's also, it seems to be a lot more ideas flying around. Everybody today has an opinion, right? Everybody today might think that they might have a platform with social media, right? and it's interesting to navigate those conversations, right? So as a consumer, you get exposed to so many messages going in so many directions, right? And, I think on our case, we're very fortunate that we had a very strong family education, right? Like we have, both of our parents were present. We were with them. They were always very vocal about their beliefs, what they think. Like, we were raised Catholic. We're not practicing Catholicism right now. But I think we have a really solid direction of like who we are and the things that we believe in, right? But I think today with that much information for a young mind, like you said, you say you think they should be 18 before they can access social media, right? Even at 18, I think is a lot, right? So, and you have a show where you tell your truth and you're very open about it, and you look for different opinions, and like how can we establish that conversation, especially when there's so many divisions, right? And as a marketing tactic, you see these marketers go into the polarizing side,
the fear-based
messaging, because that drives more attention. Hence, they think that translate into more and better business, right? So, as a consumer or as somebody that puts a message out there, what would you recommend to people to stop the division? I think there's always going to be some kind of division, but like how are we civil with the messaging, right? Because I have no issue communicating with somebody with a different religion, different thought. Like just yesterday we recorded a prototype show that we've been talking about it with our cousin, where we go through social media videos and we laugh about funny things. But some people might think that us laughing about certain thing that was funny because we have a story maybe growing up might seem offensive, right? And then all of a sudden that person gets canceled. There's a lot of fear on that, especially for business owners too, that might want to promote their product or might want to promote their message, and that might change their life because they have a small business, less is more. Maybe customers come in and buy their product, right? So how are we controlling the messaging? How do we tackle that issue, especially in today's day and age?
Well, here's the problem in today's day and age. The media is creating your narrative and your optic, and they're so hell-bent on focusing on their wages that they push the country down the river. You see, the reason we're so divided, the reason is so much division, the reason is so much polarization is because the medias have decided to become extensions of your political parties. And instead of objectivity and truth, they're selling agenda, and agenda pits us. The media is at the root cause of the division in this country, not your elected officials, right? The media is so powerful here that they can stifle the message of government. Who puts out the message of government? Not government. You can have all the spokespersons you want. If the media doesn't want to pick it up and run with it, you just take a look at what's going on right now at this border. The only media outlet that covers the activity at the border is Fox. MSNBC and CNN don't deploy journalists to cover the border. What's going on in Hukumba, San Ysidro, what went on through the 1,000-mile border of Texas, or what I call unmonitored sectors of the border, which went on. Guys, let me tell you, this is a very grave problem we're dealing with. But the first thing is we need to instill some form of oversight with our media. And you have to be careful that you don't intersect with the First Amendment. The First Amendment doesn't allow you to run into a movie theater and yell fire. The First Amendment shouldn't allow you to pit with knowingly promote lies and misinformation to drive a political agenda. What's going on here? And no one seems to have the chops to go up and challenge them. I don't mind I talk about it all the time. I look at this guy, Sean Hannity, $45 million a year. You think he cares what he says? All he wants to do is keep his viewers, his sponsors, right? And his salary. And here's the deal. It's not even that what he's saying isn't accurate or true. In life, you learn it's not what you say, but how you say it. And that we've just abandoned all of our standards in journalism today. And that's the root of this problem. Complicated, I would say just further exacerbated by the fact that, we have people looking for messages, and we're exploiting their thirst for information. And how about you just feed them the truth? How about you feed them solutions? How about you start to tell people, guys, relax, it's okay, we're different. When do you ever hear the media say that? When do you hear the government say that? Guys, listen to me. Understand America. You have 194 countries in this country at least. You gentlemen don't know this, but I ran the United Nations World Peace Summit celebrating their 50th anniversary at the UN in the Waldorf Astoria. I had 194 religious leaders in the delegations. The message should be, it's okay, we're different. What you have to do is be mindful that you can't allow your lifestyle, your politics, any number of choices that you make to intersect with or impact negatively another person. I got to be honest with you. I don't care about transgender people being here. I don't have an issue with it. I don't want anyone talking to my children, by the way. Straight, gay, transgender, tall, fat, short. I don't really care. It's my job to parent.
Absolutely.
And if they're remissful, then we have an institution, child services, that will come in and exercise some oversight. But nobody should be talking to children at 4 years old when we're trying to teach you the color of crayons about your sexuality and planting these seeds.
Yeah.
You know, my thing is you have to let people live and you have to create a lane for everyone. But we don't have these conversations in the country. Everything's about banging heads and why we can't get along. They remind us every day of our differences and why we can't get along. I got bad news for the Jews and the Muslims and the Palestinians or whomever. We're all going to be here. Why don't you figure out how we're going to get along, folks?
Yeah.
Why don't you learn and embrace this term called compromise? You know, and as far as our government's gone awry here. We don't know whether we support the Israelis, we don't support the Israelis. Look, I'm concerned about all innocent people. I don't care where you're from. And I've traveled this world. What people don't know and understand is that the people of a particular country are not indicative of the government. Venezuela is an example of it. Yeah. So is Russia, so is China, so is the United States. Most people are just trying to get through the day, take care of your kids, feed, clothe, and educate them. You really give a shit about the rest of this crazy? No, you just want to take care of your family. They're the same way in Russia. Putin is not indicative of the people of Russia. Neither is Xi, neither is our president, by the way. Believe me, this is a conservative country. Yeah. You know, and I use terms like complacent, indifferent, distracted to describe Americans today and why they're not more proactive in implementing change. We're hoping you're going to go to the polls and vote. So we have a little course correction. I'm not anti-Democrat. My favorite president of all times, I've spoken about it, was John F. Kennedy. The guy was inspirational. He galvanized this country. The last guy before him, I should say after him, was Ronald Reagan. You know, everybody in between, the messaging is wrong. You got to calm this country down. But I want to tell you something else, guys, and I've spoken about this in my podcasts. The population, we have no idea what the population of this country is, just so you understand. By the way, we have no idea how many guns are in our country. By the way, we have no idea how many people illegally crossed that border in the past 3.5 years. That's something. You know how I can comfortably say that? A lot of people don't comply with the census. The United States government says the census was 335 million. Well, I'm going to guarantee if we take the 10% factor of people that didn't comply, that's another 33 million. Add that number. Now you're over 360, 370, right, guys? Yeah. Now I got Chuck Schumer volunteering the fact that we have between 11 and 15 million illegals here. We want to give amnesty and let them vote. They're not in the census. This past 3.5 years, we have people who have encounters at the southern border, over 7 million, right? We have gotaways pushing 2 million. And then, guys, pay attention. We have unmonitored sectors of our border. And I haven't even brought up the fact that the largest number of people that violated our immigration laws were people that overstayed their visas. You don't hear that number today given to you, do you? How about the northern border? And the number at the northern border is increasing every day.
Yeah.
So we don't know how many people here. We don't know how many guns are here. We don't know how many people cross the border. And it's incumbent upon government to try to, I would say, manage this problem responsibly. I go back and say to you, and just so you guys know, I mean, the FBI's had my fingerprints for more than 50 years. They have my DNA now as a result of 9/11. I don't want my body parts found and you not be able to identify it's me so my family has resolution. Many of us, almost all of us in law enforcement have crossed that threshold. I'm not asking you to do anything I haven't done.
Yeah.
You know?
So I wrote here, the consequence of misinformation, right?
You're living it.
Exactly. And
division, hatred, polarization.
Yeah. And I think that goes we love frameworks and principles, right? And I think there's a lesson in everything that we encounter, even if it might just seem like a conversation that it's outside of business, but there's always lessons that we can bring in here. So as we wrap up, Lou, I mean, this has been enlightening. I love your message, and especially because it hits close to home, because we lived it. Like we lived this division and the consequence, and we had to leave our home because of it. Inside of our own home, our grandmother was a big Chavez, supporter, and the rest of the family was not, and we were living in the same house. And I wrote here, embracing compromise, and how do we get there, right? And inside of our house, we had these rules where the rule was we don't talk politics, right? And that inside of our house, it made it livable.
But that's not the solution. You have to
correct.
You have to tell people it's okay. We're not of the same opinion, but you have to maintain your civility and respect. You see, you can't avoid the fact that we're not going to agree. What we've lost today is civility and respect in our conversations. Your grandmother doesn't have to. See, I warn everybody: never invalidate the feelings of people that don't agree with you.
Correct.
You see my point? But you should not have to avoid the politics. You have to kind of pursue the truth, and you have to temper the discussion.
So here's the second part to this, right? Like, so what that led to was our dad not talking to her grandma for years inside of the same house.
Is that his mother?
Is that my mom's mother?
It's her mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law.
Okay.
For years, to the point that in the same room they would not speak to each other, and it took a big event in our household where, me being a crazy young idiot, I grabbed a car with no permit and drove it and crashed with 7 others. Everybody was okay. No, nothing. But obviously big problem. And that event that was massive caused them to talk again. So, if you extrapolate this, do we really need such a big, what big event should happen to then people in America start having these conversations and going back to being rational human beings and respecting each other, right? I hope we don't need a big event, right? That was traumatic for the family in that moment. It was traumatic for me, but at the end of the day, on the other side, family became closer, right? Do we need a big dramatic event, right? Like for a lot of business owners in their journey of entrepreneurship, there's often something like that happens that triggers change.
Well, what the country needs, unfortunately, is a dramatic event, sadly along the lines of like 9/11, that will jar the country to make them understand we have a problem here, number one. And then what we need for people to do is to try to embrace the truth as to how we got here. You see, I ask a very simple question regarding this immigration issue, and that's what poses the greatest threat to our national security. With not only the fact that we have people we don't want in the country, but fentanyl and any number of other activities that are going on. The problem in the country is the leadership is wrong. There's no art to polarizing and making people hate each other. We have 2 presidents right now, one guy running and the other guy. Although I will tell you, I'm listening to Donald Trump's rhetoric temper. He's not as insulting. He's not as aggressive. He's not as antagonistic in his speech and as critical in people. I think they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Maybe we did. And as far as Biden goes, this is shameful what he's done to our country in many aspects. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. I'm neither one. I'm a teller of the truth. I'm looking at it and I'm living it every day. But we need to start to change the message. Sadly, to go to your question, I think a cataclysmic or catastrophic occurrence in this country would jar people and bring them back to what's important, and that's our preservation. I tell you, when I was in New York on 9/11, and for about a month or 2 after that, the tone of the city just dialed way down, and people were much more tolerant of one another, much more respectful, much more considerate, much more accommodating. And then, of course, we reverted back to our old ways. That's really the truth. I witnessed it and I lived it. I'm the same every day. I talk to everybody like a lady or gentleman until you give me a reason not to. I have nothing to prove with anyone. I'm trying to get people on the playing field of understanding the importance of peace and calm in your life. The government should try to sell that message. maybe you'd stop holding on to some of these extreme beliefs as much as you do. And I keep telling people, stop holding on too tight. This is a fleeting experience, life. It's the snap of your fingers sometimes, the wink of your eye. But we need leadership. You need discussion. All of these conversations intersect with the way the country's being run today. Tragically, that was so divided that was suggesting that we have another 9/11 style event to course correct the country. Maybe if we had mass casualties. You see my point? That's what happened on 9/11. It pulled the country together, interestingly enough. And for people on the West Coast, it was difficult for them to empathize or to envision exactly what happened in New York. I was there. It's my home. I was there on Broadway and 44th Street. I was at the Trade Center by 1 o'clock in the afternoon trying to help people. Wow. It was quite an enlightening experience. And you know what it does? It puts things in perspective for you. The government's supposed to do that. I don't understand why leadership is so difficult. It's not difficult for me. Honestly, I lead people every day. I lead everybody, my family. I guide people through crisis calmly. I never get upset. I never get crazy. And I'm going to tell you a secret, guys. If you bump into a problem and you get nuts, you stay calm, the result is the same. Learn how to manage the stimulation. Don't be triggered. There's a lot to learn about life. Not being triggered, not giving people power. Right? We give the enemy, or I hate to even use that term, we give people in opposition of us power because we allow them to affect our lives. What do you care what people think or people say? Do what you know is right. Stop worrying about this popularity contest. A lot of life's lessons, to be candid with you, need to intersect with government and their message. They've got a huge responsibility today. But I go back and tell you this also. We have 100 senators and 435 House of Representatives members that are steering a country of about 400 million. That's how many people I think we have here. We're embarking on that. I say it comfortably and conservatively. And I can give you an accounting as to how. I've watched the population growth. It would be nice if these guys all got on the same sheet of music. We didn't even do it after the COVID virus, guys. Were you gentlemen here for the virus in 2020?
Yeah, that changed our entire life.
Okay, well, here's what happened, though. Instead of us putting down the sword, correct, and saying, listen, we have a crisis in the country, let's put the politics aside. No, this is what we decided to do. We politicized the virus, then we weaponized it to go after a presidential administration. Distancing, masks, this is right, this is wrong. Guys, this is failed leadership, what we're living today. I don't know if there's another John Kennedy or another Ronald Reagan in the wings. I certainly hope there is. But what happened during COVID is a prime example. We had a catastrophe in this country. We couldn't pull it together. That's all there was to it. Yeah. And I lived in New York City at the time, and it was dark. I mean, I've never seen my city dark, where it was dark at night. There was no lights on. There were no people. There were no vehicles. It was almost surreal, like a Hollywood movie. Wow. But the message has got to come from the government and reinforce with people, you got to get past these hurdles of difference. I don't need everybody to be in alignment with me. My attitude is very simple. We can argue all day long. Don't get threatening, because that will bring out a different attribute that I have. I listen to everyone. You know what? I tell you something else. I tell people repeatedly, my favorite people in the world are people smarter than I am. That's who I learn from. Try to latch on to that. You'll be less threatened by people's ideas. All of these problems that we're having today, two things exist. They're self-inflicted and they're fixable. I make a very bold statement. I could run this government with my eyes closed. People say, what would you do first? I'd have one set of rules for everybody. I don't care about what your political party is. You cross a particular boundary, you've got to have accountability. We don't have it. We have a lot of excuses why your bad behavior was okay. You have to establish boundaries. You have to establish accountability and then consequences. That's what this is about. But one set of rules. That would pull into alignment all these knuckleheads in Washington that pose as your representatives and our presidents. We had a president commit perjury over oral copulation, guys. You know what that oral copulation is, right? Mm-hmm. Sitting in the West Wing of the White House without consequence. You find him? He should have been removed. He committed a felony. I don't know what went on with Barack Obama bombing, and killing civilians. I don't think that was of the same magnitude of problem, but there was no accountability, no question about it. Then we have Donald Trump. He paid hush money to somebody that we can't get a straight story on. And we come to learn that it's not against the law to pay hush money, and a whole lot of people are doing it that are very high profile. And because someone makes an allegation doesn't mean it's true. You see, something else that's happened in the culture.
Yeah.
We've stepped away from due process. You know, we just witnessed them weaponize the judicial system, whether they like it or not. I'm not a Trump fan. I'd like him to have more dignity. I'd like him to be more thoughtful. I'd like him to think before he said something, to understand what it translates to. But independent of that, you just listen to the rhetoric of the people that were running for office at the time they were running. The agenda was there.
Yeah.
Okay, and I got bad news for everybody. If you think Donald Trump's the only guy that gets creative in business, boy, are you wrong. But we prosecuted an individual in search of a crime. Normally, I do the investigation and come to the DA, we indict and we prosecute you based on a crime that we know exists. That's not what happened. It's not because, I'm not saying it because I'm a Republican, I'm a Donald Trump fan. This is dangerous, and it intersects with the beginning of this conversation about the credibility of our institutions.
Yeah.
You know, these topics, they go off into tangents and they all come back and they intersect. About the future of this country and the future of our young people. You guys are entitled something to better than we're giving you. All the young people are. You know, I tell the people that are involved with our production, I want to go to universities. I don't care which one it is. First thing I want to say is I owe you an apology for destabilizing this country the way we have and destroying the credibility of every institution you need to believe in. And guys, there's some other things you need to learn in life. You need to maintain your civility, your decency, your self-respect. It's okay we're not the same. Where are you ever told that? All we're reminded about every day, as I said earlier in this broadcast, is how different we are and why we can't get along. I like things that are different, but I'm a different person also. I was a great traveler because everywhere I went, all I wanted to do was learn from the people in that environment because we're all products of our environment. You guys know my environment. You know what Italian duzibats means? You're a little crazy. It makes you a little crazy. A little duzibats. And that's how I learned so much about life. You got to let people live here, which is also how I opened up a lot of what I was saying today.
Yeah.
Stop holding on so tight. Relax. Start having some civil conversations. In business, if you think you want. See, you guys don't understand something. You have a built-in mechanism for you guys to grow. But it means you won't be able to hold hands in this office one day. If you go to another studio, you've got to go to one, and you've got to go to one. Now, you alluded to a cousin. Depending on the nature of that relationship and how trustworthy, that creates a scenario for another owner in a third studio. There's nothing like having an owner in the business. I told you guys earlier. Yeah. When you branch out, the guy that had the mom and pop shoe store in Brooklyn, right, he's now opened up in L.A. and in Chicago and Boston. The owners aren't running it. You're relying on a manager. That goes back to something about incentivizing the people that work for you. Give them a piece of the pie. You don't have to give them a gigantic piece, but give them incentive. Yeah. I had a friend of mine in New York, and I know we're gone past what you're talking about here, but he owned probably 10 or 12 restaurants in Manhattan. Incredible restaurateur. All the managers had an interest in the restaurant. So it wasn't like you punched the clock. You were like, holy Christ, the harder I work, the more successful this venture is. Not only am I salaried, right? Yeah. But I'm receiving something in addition, ownership. Yeah. You see, and you can structure that deal. So there's a lot of ways to be creative in business, but I tell people less is more, and before you decide you want to start branching out, you better have the mechanism in place and people that can carry the message and the ball the same way you do as the owner. See, I run my business. I run all my jobs. I don't care who it is. If it's Governor Schwarzenegger pops into New York or D.C., I'm there. The Golden Globes, I ran for 14 years personally. I ran Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Waldorf Astoria. Every year it was in there that I worked, every year. I didn't have my guys working it, sitting home watching Monday Night Football. You guys have to remember that also, because at some point, your ambition, which you need a little of, just has to be harnessed and managed. You're going to want to branch out, and you guys, like I said, it's nice that you can hang out with each other now. But understand the reality of growth. For you, you're going to have to separate, continue to communicate, right, with each other, and maybe open up. And it's a hypothetical, another studio. You see my point? And then you have a cousin. And then when I say to you after that, if you don't have someone as strong as the three of you are, you better take a good look, because you're about to open up Pandora's box. That's the problem, so.
Lou, this has been super exciting. Long time coming. Thank you for coming here into the studio and share your amazing, truthful, and honest thoughts. I think a lot of people are lacking that in publishing today in general. And I took a lot of lessons, man. Took a lot of notes in here. We're gonna process this episode also for me to kind of rethink, especially in the environment that we currently live and continue to move forward. So, Fonzie, is there anything else you want to share?
I'm just first grateful for you being here. I really appreciate it. I love the passion with which you share your message as well. I think is contagious. And
you know, I like to tell everybody, people in this country need to learn how to relax. You hear me? Learn how to relax.
Yeah.
Stop being triggered. Take a deep breath. Don't get over invested in something. You know what I mean? Just and I tell you guys too, you're young guys, you're full of energy. The expression is piss and vinegar. You know, in the police department, guys come out of the academy and they're ready to go. It's cold, you're full of piss and vinegar and you want to go. Relax. Walk before you run. Yeah. But, you also need, you need some guidance. And look, you guys are, you're both on the right track. You just have to figure out what the bigger battle plan is. I just gave you a couple of the secrets. Yeah. Don't try to have studios all over the country, because with that's going to be an enormous amount of heartache. Yeah. And there are organizations like NBC and ABC, and these are heavily financed. And there's a different type of mechanism that's employed. Yeah, I don't know if that's what you gentlemen would ultimately want. I want to talk to you guys when we get off air about what I want to what we need to do on our end. But that's it. I'm around anytime you guys need to.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate it. Extremely grateful. And I think that's it, guys. That's the episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning to Content is Profit. And then we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.